I filed a restraining order against the biker who kept showing up at my autistic son's school every day at 3 p.m. For 6 months straight, rain or shine. This massive man, leather vest, heavy boots, tattoos crawling up his arms like black vines, waited in the parking lot of Lincoln Elementary. Not once did he try to hide. He would park the motorcycle, fold his arms, lean back, and just wait. My son, Daniel, would spot him from across the playground and break into a sprint. Daniel never runs to anyone. Most days, he doesn't even acknowledge people exist. And eye contact is rare. He struggles with sensory overload, and being touched is overwhelming for him. But every time that biker appeared, Daniel lit up like a sunrise. He ran into that man's arms with a desperate kind of joy, like they were family. The school counselor told me, with a softness in her voice, that she had never seen Daniel smile like that before, that he talked more afterward, that he seemed calmer, happier. But I didn't listen. I was terrified. My son is autistic. He can't explain things the way other kids can. And when he gets overwhelmed, he shuts down. He doesn't describe his feelings or tell me stories from his day. Sometimes I have to piece together his emotions like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. So when I asked him who the biker was, hoping for a name or even a gesture that would make sense, he whispered the strangest thing. You smell like safe. Safe? Safe with a stranger? All I felt was dread. Every day after that, I went into protective mother mode. I took photos of the man from a distance. I wrote down the time he arrived. I even followed his motorcycle once, but he lost me within minutes on the highway. I started Googling motorcycle gang symbols at 2 a.m., looking for that eagle and skull patch on his vest. I read so many horror stories about bikers using schools to scout vulnerable kids that I convinced myself Daniel was in danger. Then, one afternoon, everything escalated. It was dismissal time. Kids laughed and ran toward their parents. Backpacks bounced. Car doors slammed. And then I heard it. A scream so sharp it cut through everything. Daniel. He was overwhelmed and bolted toward the street, running straight into oncoming traffic. I froze. I couldn't move. My legs turned to stone, but the biker didn't freeze. He jumped off his motorcycle, threw the entire bike onto its side right in the middle of the lane to block the cars, and scooped Daniel up in one smooth motion. He held him tight, whispering something I couldn't hear, and Daniel immediately stopped screaming. My son buried his face into that man's vest, as if he had finally found safety. I should have felt grateful. Instead, I felt threatened. I marched into the school office the next morning and demanded access to the security footage. I took it straight to the police and slammed the USB drive onto the counter. I want this man arrested, I snapped. He's stalking my child. The officer clicked play. Frame by frame, we watched the biker doing nothing but standing still, far away from kids, never crossing any boundaries. In every clip, it was Daniel who approached him, not the other way around, but I wasn't ready to be wrong. He's dangerous, I insisted. My son doesn't know him. The officer paused the footage and stared at the screen, then at me, expression changing slowly. He leaned back, folded his arms, and said 6 words that shattered the world I had built around me. Ma'am, that's your son's father. I laughed in disbelief. No. My husband died 11 years ago in a motorcycle accident. I identified his body. I signed the death certificate. I buried him. The officer turned his monitor toward me and opened a file. Marcus Webb, age 43, motorcycle crash, 2012. Reported deceased, but the body we thought was his wasn't identified by ID. His wallet and license were destroyed in the wreck. He continued reading. He was in a coma for 8 months, admitted as a John Doe. When he woke up, he couldn't remember his name, traumatic brain injury. He had to learn how to talk and walk again. For 2 years, he didn't know who he was. My heartbeat became a roar in my ears, and by the time he remembered, the officer said gently. You had moved on. New address. New last name. He had no way to find you. I stared at the frozen frame on the screen. The biker kneeling down, holding Daniel as if holding a treasure he wasn't sure he deserved to touch. That man has spent years searching for you, the officer finished. And when he finally found Daniel, he didn't reveal himself. He just watched from a distance. My voice cracked. Why wouldn't he talk to me? The officer flipped a page in his notes. Because of this. He slid a report toward me describing the incident where Daniel ran into traffic. The officer looked at me, softer now, when Marcus pulled him to safety. Your son spoke. My heart stopped. Spoke? Daniel spoke? The officer swallowed. His exact words were, You smell like my daddy used to smell? I covered my face and sobbed. The next day, I waited at the school. At 3 p.m., exactly on time, the Harley appeared. Loud, powerful, familiar. Marcus pulled off his helmet, and my breath caught in my throat. He was older, weathered, scarred. But the eyes, I knew those eyes. Daniel saw him and ran, pure joy on his face, and threw his arms around the man's neck. My son never hugs people. But he hugged Marcus. I walked toward them, barely able to breathe. Marcus panicked when he saw me and started to back away. But Daniel grabbed his vest. No, Daniel said firmly. Stay. My voice trembled as I asked Daniel, Do you know who this is? Daniel looked at Marcus, then at me. Daddy. I broke. Tears slid down my face as I finally looked at the man I had once loved, the man I mourned, the man I buried. Why didn't you tell me you were alive? I whispered. Marcus swallowed hard. I tried. I sent a letter to our old address. It came back. When I finally found you again, you were married. I didn't want to ruin your life. Then Daniel ran into traffic, and when he hugged me, he looked away, voice breaking. I knew I should leave, but I couldn't. You've been here every day? Every day I could, he said. I missed 11 years. I couldn't miss another second. Daniel reached out and took both our hands, pressing them together. Mommy, Daddy, together. I dropped the restraining order. The court had to legally resurrect Marcus, undo his death certificate. DNA tests confirmed everything. This biker was Daniel's father. Marcus didn't try to replace anyone. He quietly fit into Daniel's life, learning routines, attending therapies, reading books about autism. He never pushed. He simply showed up, and Daniel changed. He laughed more, spoke more, connected more. One evening, after a therapy session, I told Marcus, You brought him back to life. Marcus shook his head and whispered, He brought me back to life. 6 months later, we celebrated Daniel's 13th birthday in the backyard. There were balloons, mismatched chairs, people talking over each other. My husband was there. Marcus was there. Marcus's girlfriend was there. Daniel had an entire circle of people loving him from different places, different histories. He blew out his candles. Smiling so big his eyes disappeared. He finally had a family. Not the neat kind, not the traditional kind, but the real kind. The biker at 3 p.m. wasn't a threat. He was a father who clawed his way back from death, from trauma, from a shattered identity, just to stand in a parking lot and make sure his son was never alone again.